Before we jump into today's episode, I want to tell you guys about my friends over at No Cap. These dudes are from Buffalo, New York, and they recently started a BMX clothing brand. On top of selling clothing, they're working on a new video that they're going to be releasing hopefully this year or next year. But there's going to be some awesome clips in it for sure. But yeah, let's get on to the clothing side of things. First up, we've got this awesome white short sleeve with the small logo on the front. And then on the back, they have this awesome BMX design that I really love. This one is really cool. These bags are really cool, actually. I think these would be great for, when you go out solo riding and you just need your phone, maybe a couple tools and whatnot. This is perfect for it. So shout out to them. I think the highlight out of the whole box they sent me was definitely the ski mask. This is super rad. I really like this. And also, can't forget this amazing long sleeve shirt that they just sent me, which is a Ouija board rip-off design. Really love this. Thank you guys for that. So on top of sending me a bunch of stuff, they actually sent you guys some stuff as well. So if you go to my Instagram, by the time this is live, we should have a post up where you guys can win some of the stuff here. So some of the stuff that I'll be giving away. We got numerous hats. These are really cool. These Pure Hell hats are such a great rip. I really like that. They sent 2 of these side bags to give away, so I'm definitely hyped on that. I think you guys will really like them. Pair of socks for somebody. Yeah, we got a ton of these logo hats, which is really cool. Some kid-sized beanies as well. So if any of you guys got little ones, definitely pick up one of those. And a few of these no cap stickers. Yeah, if you liked everything that you saw here today, definitely head over to nocapny.com and pick some stuff up for yourself. It supports the show. Again, huge shout out to those guys. Thank you so much for being part of the show. Hello and welcome back to today's episode of the Goat Cave podcast. Today's guest has played a huge role in the women's BMX community, dating all the way back to the late 90s. At the age of 19, she was the first woman to ever pull a backflip in a contest, and I believe the first woman to ever do a backflip on a BMX bike. She then went on to becoming a 2-time BMX world champion and is still at it to this day. She is one of the toughest ladies around, with over 12 major knee surgeries under her belt and a few crashes that could have resulted in the loss of her life. She's a legend of the BMX community and has been showing the guys BMX is for girls for over 20 years. Cory Coffey, how are you?
Hey, what's up, everyone? I'm doing great. Really excited to be on this today.
Absolutely, and we're actually joined by Beatrice Trang, right? I always pronounce it wrong.
Yeah, no, that's perfect.
Awesome. Beatrice is from the Bloom. We've had her on in the past before. I just figured we got to have Beatrice in here for this.
Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, of course. So, Cory, you're actually out camping right now, correct?
Yes, that is correct. I am in a very northern part of Michigan, up in the Leelanau Peninsula.
Wow, that's awesome. How long are you guys going to be camping for this week?
My family and I will be camping for about the next week. My mom is out visiting from California, so we're trying to show her some cool places in Michigan. So we're camping right on Lake Michigan. So it's awesome.
That's super rad. So let's go way back here to when you first started riding. How did you get started?
Well, I grew up riding skateboards the majority of my life. That's just kind of what we did in the neighborhood. And I'd always be riding my skateboard out in front of my house. And eventually I saw some kids ride by on their BMX bikes, and they were really nice bikes. And so they convinced me to get a BMX bike, and we just started digging dirt jumps and kind of just fell in love with that.
That's awesome. Do you remember the first bike that you ever had?
The first real BMX bike that I ever have, it was a really nice, at the time I thought it was really nice because it was chrome, but it was a Diamondback Viper.
That's really cool. The first BMX that I ever had was a Diamondback. So that's like, I don't know, there's been a couple people on the show that like we can relate so well just because of that, you know?
Yeah, that's awesome.
Hell yeah. So when you were growing up, who were some of the influences that you had in BMX?
Growing up, there were quite a few like really great riders that grew up in the same county as me. Some riders like Chris Arriaga and Adam Provo, Ian Monroe, Brian Terrata. Those were all some really amazing riders that were around me at the time. And so I could always kind of look up to those local guys because they were all such shredders.
That's awesome. So like when you first got into it, what was it kind of like being a girl and getting into BMX, especially, you know, back in the late 90s? Because you had raced for a while too, correct?
Yeah, I first started out racing. You know, we would dig dirt jumps with all my little friends in the neighborhood, and those kids raced BMX bikes. Their parents would always take them to the races, and so I started going with them. But you know, the whole pedaling thing and people chasing you around a track, I never really quite caught on to that. I didn't like that feeling of somebody following you on a track. So the dirt jumping thing I really fell in love with. And then I had gone to a skate park and ridden my skateboard before. And then I decided, you know, why don't I try to bring my BMX bike to the skate park and check it out? So that's kind of where it got started. But going back to the late 90s, I probably already kind of like stuck out like a sore thumb anyways compared to some of my fellow, you know, classmates who were girls because I rode skateboards. Most girls I knew didn't ride skateboards. There were a couple of older girls that I kind of looked up to that I knew that skateboarded. But other than that, I was always kind of just, you know, the odd one out that rode skateboards. So when I started riding BMX, it was kind of just the same. You know, because most people do team sports and bike riding is just kind of like you and your buddies. So, you know, people always just kind of thought that I was a little different, I guess.
So how long into riding did you have to get into until you discovered your first like female rider? Like, hey, there's another girl that rides. Like, how long did it take you to find someone else? It took me, I think, 2 years, and it happened to be a flatlander. It wasn't even someone who's riding park.
Yeah, I mean, I would go to the skate park and I would be the only girl. One of the fellow riders, there were a couple of brothers, and they had a younger sister who rollerbladed at the time, and sometimes she would ride her bike. But other than that, I was always the only girl at the park, and I kind of just got used to it, I guess. I mean, people always making jokes, and you just kind of, you know, go along with it being the only girl.
Mm-hmm. Different now, isn't it?
It's so cool now. I mean, we take our daughters to the skate park, and we'll roll up to the skate park, and I've got a squad of 3 girls already.
Yeah.
But I've seen so many young girls at the skate park now on bikes, on scooters, on skateboards, and I can't even believe it half the time that there's so many girls now. I'm so stoked.
And the younger generation's getting really good too. Like, I can't wait for like another, I don't know, decade to see where they're at too. But yeah, the younger generation's real good.
It's so cool how good the young shredders are, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think we're starting to see a really big, you know, I don't know, just amount of girls getting into riding. In the last, like, 5 years alone, I have seen so many. And, like, you know, before I had met Beatrice, I had really only known one other female rider, and that was Kara Bruce. And I met Kara, like, years ago. I don't know if you've ever have, but she is one of the nicest girls I've ever met. And, like, she loves BMX. And I don't know, it was, like, the first time meeting a girl that rode BMX was definitely, like, it's so weird, but it's all like, it just seems so strange at first, right? But at the end of the day, it's all the same shit. Like, we're all people. We all just want to ride, right? Like,
yeah, totally. At the end of the day, we are all the same, and we just want to ride bikes and have fun. But I can still remember in the late 90s, there's a girl named Kim, and she started Women of Freestyle and it was online, and so, you know, she posted profile pictures and pictures of girl riders from all over the world. And that was like my first connection really to other girls that rode. And it was just kind of interesting seeing that, oh, there's other chicks out there that rip. Cause I mean, I didn't know, cause I only knew of dudes that ripped. So that was kind of my first like intro to seeing other people that like, whoa, we're all the same. We ride BMX.
Actually, thanks to Kim, it was the reason why I found out about Rebecca Pergentile, the first female BMXer that I've met that flatlands, and I was like, oh, she's also from Hamilton. That's crazy. So, yeah, actually, Kim, who owns Women of Freestyle, she was the pioneer for, I guess you can call it a website for women's BMX.
Yeah, that's awesome. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love to see that kind of stuff. Like, you know, even what you and Angie are doing with the Bloom is incredible. And I think that like doing shows like this where we can actually sit down and talk to everybody, it's like if people listen, they'll all realize that it's all the same, right? Yeah. We're all in it for the same reasons. But anyways, moving past that, back in 2001, you pulled the first backflip ever done by a woman, and you had done them in contest after that as well. So can you tell us about the journey to pulling the first ever backflip?
Yeah, it was quite the journey. So, you know, I grew up in California my whole life, and I had the opportunity to go out to Woodward East when I was 19, and I had signed up to work out there for the summer. And I was only going to stay for a couple of weeks, but then a couple of weeks obviously led to a few more weeks. And there were a lot of riders that were around. And one day, everybody was kind of making jokes. They're like, all right, well, what are we going to learn today? We're going to learn backflip. And I just kind of laughed about it, never thought twice about it. But I kind of did what these dudes were doing. And we all learned backflips the same day into the foam pit. And then it was just kind of a gradual progression after, you know, you learn the foam pit to take it to the resi. And so then I kind of started playing with it on the resi a little bit, got broke off pretty bad. And then eventually Matt Hoffman was going to be hosting one of his CFB contests at Woodward East. And so I had signed up for this contest, and I knew I had to do it in the contest. And so that's when I threw it in the contest that day. And that's when it became, you know, I became the first woman to ever do one. And at the time, I wasn't really thinking about it. I was just kind of riding my bike and trying something new. I never thought beyond like what I was doing and having it be like, you know, the first woman to ever do it. So I don't know. It was just kind of a fun thing to do with some of the other riders that day.
That's awesome. I love the fact that, like, you know, you didn't do it to be the first woman to do it. You did it because you wanted to, and that, you know, others were doing it as well, and you just wanted to be part of it. I love that. I think that that's, like, such a great way to go about that, you know?
Yeah, the better way of riding BMX. You know, you're not doing it purposely for a goal. You're doing it for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
So during the course of years as a BMX rider, you had upwards of 10 knee surgeries. When did you start having knee problems?
So I've had over 12 knee surgeries, but I ended up having one of my first knee surgeries when I was still a teenager, so about 13 or 14 years old. And my knee, I had like fallen on it in a weird way. And when I would go to ollie on a skateboard, you know, it would like go out of place. Or if I was riding like rollerblades, I would go to like push off and my knee would go out of place. And so it was always like this weird thing with my knee, but I ended up having surgery early on. It turns out my ACL was blown out. So that happened at a very early age, so 14. And then it just kind of opened up a huge can of worms because I love to be active. All I've known my entire life is to, you know, wake up, go outside and play. Riding bikes, skateboards, whatever, all I want to do is just play. And so having the first surgery, you know, it kind of slowed me down, but then I was just right back at it all over again and, you know, re-injured my ACL again and had surgery again. And then, you know, playing in a wheelchair, ripping down hills in the wheelchair and hitting manhole covers and getting bucked out of the wheelchair and pulling the screws out of my femur bone. And, you know, it just, the knee surgery after knee surgery all over again, just constantly always battling that from very early on.
And is it just the one knee or both knees for you?
So at the time, the very early stages, it was just my right knee. And I had, 6 knee surgeries on that knee. So I had replaced the ACL multiple times. And everything was good with my left knee up until I had an accident back in 2007 when I blew out my good knee mountain biking.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah, that is so rough. I love the fact that, like, you just couldn't stay away from, like, riding or, just joining in the fun. That is so, like, it sucks that you unfortunately, had consequences to it, but it is, like, it's the way to live your life, right? Like, really got to live in the moment sometimes. But would you agree that, like, most of your knee surgeries have been a result of the first injury? Because I know a lot of people that have, like, ACL issues that, they go on to have many surgeries, or at least, like, things are never quite the same, obviously.
Yeah, I can totally see that happening. There's a big scientific study that's been going on for years and years about women specifically and ACL surgeries. So, that could have something to do with it as well. But yeah, I mean, if you have an injured leg, it could mess with your brain. That could always be in your mind. But yeah, I also blame it on, poor nutrition as a younger kid as well, not properly rehabbing my leg, not properly building up the muscles before and after surgery. I mean, all of it's kind of a giant snowball effect. I know so much more now than I did back then. And I sometimes just get mad at myself because, maybe I didn't listen to the doctor's orders because I wanted to ride my bike.
As an athlete too, though, that's probably the hardest part, is just letting the injury rest too, right? I think we talked about this, like, just you and me, like, I have a friend that's, like, injured right now, and for them, it's like, it's hard to just sit out, but that's probably the best remedy to get back on the bike faster. When was your last surgery? Like, since, the last one, like, how long have you been in the good zone for?
So my last knee surgery I had was in December of 2018.
Mm-hmm.
I blew out my ACL again on my left knee at the BMX Freestyle World Championships in China. And so I blew out my ACL, and then I had a surgery in December. And I chose not to fix the ACL during that surgery. I just did a cleanup surgery on it, and because I still wanted to compete last year in 2019, and I knew if I had the ACL surgery again, I would basically just retire because it takes 6 months to a year to recover from an ACL surgery. So since the end of 2018, I've been riding without an ACL and just trying to strengthen the quads and the hamstrings in the meantime. And after I retire, I'll eventually get the ACL fixed again.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, especially like with now that we have more knowledge about what we can do to strengthen that area too. Like, strengthen those muscles up can actually hold it together a little bit better, right?
Yeah, you would hope so. And I've heard great things from people who have not had ACLs for years and years. But I mean, to be honest with you, it's causing probably more damage, what I'm doing now, than if I were to just get it fixed. But it goes out of place often enough to where it sucks, but I'm not really willing to stop competing right now. So I'll just keep going.
So, I mean, it sounds like you've had a lot of surgeries. What are we looking at for medical bills, if you don't mind me asking? Because here in Canada, we get the privilege of not really paying into it every time. We pay through our taxes. So what's your bill situation looking like? Because I know when Nina crashed, it was bad.
Yeah, I mean, the United States, we're a little bit different for sure when it comes to medical bills. But thankfully, during my surgeries as a teenager going into my 20s, thankfully I had insurance, and I never really accumulated crazy outstanding bills. Later in my 20s, I kind of started to figure out not how to work the system, but I worked with a couple of surgeons. And one of my surgeons we actually ended up doing a cash deal. Talked to the surgeon. He was willing to accept a certain amount. It was thousands of dollars in cash, but we just did it that way. We didn't go through insurance because insurance is so interesting. But right now I pay an arm and a leg for insurance, just so if something does happen to me, I'm not going to be stuck with, crazy amounts of hospital bills.
Yeah. Like what is like a normal surgery bill? Like I can't imagine how much it might even be. But I remember Nina's, when Nina, I think, messed up her teeth, I think, or her jaw, it was like 47,000 or something, wasn't it?
Yeah, I can definitely see that happening. I mean, I did the same thing. I broke my jaw, knocked out my front 4 teeth at Woodward West in 2008. And I want to say that set me back, I don't know, $12,000 in the end. But I didn't have quite expensive surgery as Nina did.
Yeah, well.
Yeah, we recently had Joey Baggs on the show, who's from Wisconsin, and he broke his leg in December, I believe, and his medical bills for his leg to be fixed were $70,000.
Oh my
God. Definitely, like, unfortunate, but the States is super expensive for medical, and, like, I don't know, I guess that's just one of those things that we're so lucky in Canada that we don't have to pay that.
Yeah.
And I think that, like, especially as an action sports person, right? Because, like, if you don't ride BMX, you don't skate, you don't really do any of that stuff, then it doesn't really make sense to pay into it. But at the end of the day, it can happen to anybody, right? Like, you could literally just, trip down your steps and break your leg. Like, I think that's the thing that kind of, like, is so rough sometimes. But yeah, like, definitely, how is the teeth? I've done that a couple times, and it's not fun. Like, I've done it about 5 times where I've knocked out my front teeth. I just wear a full face now, and, like, even that is, like, I don't know. I've had some pretty bad crashes with it on, but...
Yeah, you definitely don't want to mess around with the mouth. I ride with a mouth guard in now, but, it's just... I don't know. I just don't want to deal with my mouth getting smashed in ever again.
Yeah, it's the worst, especially because the whole healing process for it is like, well, I guess you're eating, mashed potatoes and food that isn't solid for the next 3-4 months. Like, and even that is like, okay, you're definitely getting started pretty early. And like ever since then, I have a temporary bridge because it's still like in Canada, we do have to pay for medical for your teeth. Like any dentistry is completely like out of pocket here, unless you do have insurance through like your work or you pay into it. But yeah, for me, I've just been rocking the temporary bridge for probably 6 years now. But yeah, anyways, going back on the knee injuries there, does it ever help to wear like a knee brace for you, or is it just super uncomfortable and limiting?
Back in the day when I first did some of my ACL surgeries, I was rocking my CTI knee braces. They were so gracious in hooking me up with their amazing custom fitted knee braces. And, I wore it for a little while, but I can also tell you, while I've had on a knee brace for an ACL post-surgery, that I've also blown my ACL out while wearing a CTI knee brace. And so in talking to a couple of people, if you're wearing something on your leg, your body is aware of that, and it's going to constantly always think that there's something wrong with it. So that's kind of my mentality in it. It's not going to stop me from blowing out my knee. So why wear it? So that's kind of my mentality going into it. Until they can come up with something from my knee from stopping from going out of place, I'm not going to wear anything. So
yeah, I guess it really doesn't make sense if it's not going to, actually work. Like, it is just kind of something that's in the way at that point, right?
Have you found
Yeah, it seems a little uncomfortable. I hit my knee brace so many times on my pedals, because, you hit your shins a lot when you ride, and right there in the tib fib area, I I still have one of my old knee braces, and it's got so many gouges out of that area. But yeah, I don't see a point in wearing the brace personally, but I know lots of people that, love them.
Anyways, sorry, I forgot to ask this one earlier. So how long did it take till other women started landing backflips?
Let's see. My first one was in 2001. I believe in 2003, a mountain biker started doing backflips, and that was the first mountain biker, was 2003. So, a couple of years later. But now it's so funny, you got friggin' rippers like Ellie Chu doing double backflips. So it's like, who cares about those single flips now?
What I love about Ellie Chu and doing backflips is, like, she's doing them over the Nitro Mega Ramp, which is already like a huge, accomplishment to be doing that. But I just really love that there was a post that she made of her doing a double flip, and at the end of the video, everybody runs over, and instead of like piling on top of her, everybody's so nice and respectful, just gives her a nice hug. I love that. I don't know why. It's just one of those things that like put a smile on my face for sure.
Yeah, she's awesome, and the camaraderie around all those Nitro Circus people is just amazing. I mean, you pump each other up when you do cool things, and everybody was so stoked to see her do it. I mean, I'm still so stoked when I see Ellie do that. She's incredible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Ellie is definitely, she's on my list of, like, women out there that I would love to talk to about BMX. But also Hannah Roberts, like, she's doing flares, she's doing all this stuff, and she's, like, by far one of the most progressive riders out there in, female BMX riding.
Yeah, it's really cool to see Hannah and her progression. I mean, I was watching, some clips that she posted yesterday. And, I mean, Hannah's such a badass. She's just doing double whips, no problem, 360 whips, backflip, no handers. I mean, couple of bar spins like it's nobody's business. And, I mean, you want to talk about top of the game. She's the future right there. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, I'm so happy for her, and it's crazy to sit back and be like, dang, Hannah.
Yeah, she's definitely made a name for herself, not just in, the female side of BMX, but for all of BMX, which is awesome. Like, I love to see that. I love to see, just women in general on bikes. I think it's so great because in reality, BMX is such a, like, sausage fest when you really think about it, right? Like, it's so many men, including skateboarding. Skateboarding, I think, has a lot more women in it. There was actually a post that Tony Hawk made today of a 12-year-old girl that he trained to jump this, like, mini mega on a skateboard. And she was, like, doing it clean by the third try. And I love that. I think it's just so cool,
He's actually been posting up a lot of skateboards. It's actually nice to see that.
That's actually really funny you say that, because right before we started talking today, I was actually watching the video of Sky Brown, and that young shredder is just crazy. I don't know if you saw the video of her before when she flew off of the vert ramp in between the channel as well and just fell. But yeah, 12-year-old girl, she's it's gnarly.
I'll pull that up right now. Beatrice, do you want to ask the next question? For us?
Sure. Talk. So we want to ask about the crash that happened at the MTV Sports and Music Fest in Las Vegas. What happened there?
Yeah, so the MTV Sports and Music Festival crash, that's taken us way back. But, I had the wonderful privilege of being invited out to that MTV Sports and Music Festival in Las Vegas. And they had a vert ramp set up, and they had these huge dirt jumps set up. And I had ridden a vert ramp before at our local park, and so, we cruised around on that for a while, and they had us doing they were filming some of the stuff on the vert ramp, and I was pretty tired and hot, but then it was time to switch the production and move over into the dirt jumps. And I had never jumped dirt jumps that big in my life. There was a huge roll in, but I mean, I was young and I wasn't really scared. So, the guys were telling me how to do it, and I had jumped it a bunch in practice, and I dropped in and I kind of just got a little bit of the speed wobbles, and I came off the first jump, and I cased on the landing. And as I cased, I think my arms kind of, my arms and my legs just kind of buckled. And I swerved to the left, and I ended up slamming my head really hard and also hitting my lower back. And it just all kind of happened in slow motion, but I could hear things, but then everything just went black. I was knocked out. My best friend was there on site and was watching all of this unfold, and I started going into convulsions from the head injury. The next thing I know, I was in an ambulance. They carted me off the ambulance to the hospital, and I couldn't feel my legs when we were in the ambulance, which was really scary. I didn't know what was going on.
Yeah.
But we got to the hospital. Eventually, I started to regain some feeling in my legs, which was great. And it turns out there was just a lot of extensive soft tissue damage to the nerves and the spine area.
Mm-hmm.
But that crash took me out for many, many months just from the concussion alone. I mean, I couldn't sleep. I was dizzy all the time. Light really bothered me. But I mean, this is like years and years and years ago. And, you know, my doctor's just like, oh, maybe just you'll be okay. But I was really jacked up from that crash.
Yeah, it sounded horrible and terrifying. I don't know what your mindset would have been like just from not feeling your legs.
Yeah, anytime there's a spinal injury, I feel like that's super terrifying, you know, especially we've started to see a lot more people, unfortunately, have that happen, right? And sometimes it doesn't work out too well. Like, you know, we saw what happened to Scotty Kramer, and that was a brain/spinal injury. And yeah, I guess the spine is definitely like, it's nothing to mess with, right? Like one wrong move and your whole life could change instantly. How long did it really take you to like really recover from that? You had said that you didn't start riding for quite a few months after that, but yeah, like how long till you could really start to do like everyday tasks and whatnot?
You know, I want to say that it was a good solid 3 months at least before I felt like kind of okay again. But I didn't really know what it was at the time. I mean, I knew that I had hit my head, but it didn't really make sense why I felt so weird otherwise. But I just kind of, you know, went along with it. But I would say a solid 3 months, which is nothing in comparison to, you know, some people who could never maybe walk again.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just thankful that everything recovered as it did. But it was definitely a scary time.
Yeah, absolutely. Unrelated to that, I actually brought up the clip of Sky Brown here. This is the clip where she's airing over the entire channel. And that is so crazy. I'll play that for you, Beatrice.
Yeah.
All right, check this out. Look at how cool this is. This is like a big ramp, too. These are full-on vert ramps right over the top. Super stylish.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so rad to see, right?
Yeah, it's crazy, one, because she's so young. Actually, that's
12,
primarily the
yeah.
reason. Yeah, it's the age is shocking for me. That's amazing.
Yeah, so unreal. So rad to see that. Yeah, moving on from that, you actually also... All right, guys, I'll tell you this. You know it and I know it. It's easier to buy bike parts online nowadays. And where better to get them than the one and only Harvester Bikes? That's right. We're talking about some of the best brands in BMX being sold all over Canada from a bike shop who cares about you and your local BMX community. If you've met Ant before, you know this dude puts his heart and soul into BMX. Whether it be with his huge YouTube channel where he builds some of the coolest bikes, or his Wednesday night shop rides that have played a huge role in the greater Toronto area, or the fact that he is shipping bikes all across Canada for the best prices. Harvester Bikes is your one-stop shop for all your BMX needs, whether it be new great quality bikes or parts from brands like Cult, Fit, We the People, Sunday, and so many more, or you're looking for mid-school or old-school parts for your collection. Harvester Bikes does it all. I'll make it pretty simple for you. If you're not buying from Harvester Bikes, you're not supporting the best BMX shop in Canada. Head over to Harvester Bikes today and get some free HVXgoat stickers with your order for a limited time only. So rad to see that. Yeah, moving on from that, you actually also took a really bad crash a little later on as well, on Monday, June 4th, 2007. You had actually posted a blog post on like a WordPress blog about it, like pretty much the day after it happened. And this is like reading about it literally had me like, with goosebumps, so like nervous, just really hoping that you were okay. And obviously you were, but yeah, do you mind just telling us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so that crash happened in my hometown of Ojai, California, and one of my good friends, Erin, she and I went on a mountain bike ride on probably one of my favorite trails there, and we were just cruising down the trail. It's a single track trail, so I was kind of leading the way, and I had already crashed like earlier on that ride just for no reason, but then coming down the trail, and I think there was a big boulder or some bushes on the right-hand side. And when you see that thing when you're riding and you're like, don't look at it, because as soon as you look at it, you're going to hit it.
Yeah.
So that happened. I see this thing. I think I actually struck my pedal on the rock, and it bucked me left off of a cliff. And I flew off of this cliff, I don't know, very blindly. Flew down about 12 feet, and as I was going, I tried to grab onto the bushes as I was flying down this cliff, and it honestly kind of felt like a movie, and it looks just like a movie scene in my mind. So I grab onto these plants to try to stop myself, and they rip out, and I just continue to fall to the bottom of this ravine. And I don't know how far back my friend Erin was, but I was screaming because when I put my left leg out to kind of stop myself after I hit that rock, and I knew that something was wrong with my left leg, and for all I knew, I thought like my bones were going to be sticking out of my legs. So I start screaming for my friend, and she ended up, she could hear me, but she couldn't see me, and she had to kind of come down around this turn and saw me from the other side. And it's probably only like a couple minute hike up, but it took over an hour to get me up. And in that area, it would be next to impossible to get a helicopter up into that area. I mean, they could have sent search and rescue crews, but it was kind of late in the day, and there are bears and mountain lions in that area. So in my mind, the adrenaline's going, and I'm just like, Erin, help me get out of here. So we did what we could to get out of there, and it was super painful. But I had scrapes like all over my back, my arms, and then it turns out I blew out my good knee on that fall.
And that's where it began, eh? the good knee wasn't so good anymore.
Exactly. So there goes there goes the good knee after that. So then it's like they're just both bad knees. And fast forward to 2020, and now I've already had 12 knee surgeries. So looking forward to that baker's dozen next,
Oh man. Yeah, just hearing that story is like so crazy, right? Because it is like, it definitely sounds like out of a movie scene where you're falling and you grab onto this thing, and like that's kind of keeping you there, and then all of a sudden, you're not able to hold on anymore. But I think we're all very happy that you made it clearly, right? Like very very scary situation to be in. My buddy Scott is a paramedic, and he was talking to me recently just about how difficult it is to actually like bring in a helicopter if they need to. Mm-hmm. And I think definitely the situation you were in would not have been ideal had you needed to do that, right?
Yeah, definitely not. I mean, I knew that there was lots of tree cover in this area. There's nowhere for a helicopter to land, but how far up we were on the trail, I just knew it would have been dark by the time anybody would have come. And, it's survival of the fittest really at that point in time. So just kind of got to pull up your bootstraps and carry on.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would love to know what it's like to ride in the FEES contests. I've always loved the courses. I've always loved the riding, and I think that that is definitely one of the best contests that they do every year, especially because the course isn't the same. Like, they always change it up for a good part of it, which I really, really like. But yeah, what's it like to ride there?
Yeah, so the fees contests are really awesome. You're looking at ramps that are basically on steroids. I mean, they're monstrous ramps, and they're painted all nice and black, and there's like lots of people there, huge crowds. But it's really incredible to go to those events and to ride on the ramps. And when you look at the courses and how they design them, it really is an art form, how they put these puzzle pieces together. And sometimes you just stare at these obstacles like, what are you supposed to do with that? Like, what is that? How am I going to ride that? And then you get out there and it's crazy. But they usually issue, like these drawings of what the ramps are going to look like. And so I always stare at them and I think, all right, what am I going to do in my run? But then once you get there and you practice, you're like, oh, dang, like this is way gnarlier than I was expecting, or this is so much more fun than I was anticipating. But it's a lot of fun. I love the vibes there, and it's always fun hanging out with your friends and getting to ride the super gnarly courses. But you want to talk about some sketchy times as well. Let's just talk about practice and how giant these ramps are and how so many people disappear sometimes on these courses. So there's some good sketchy times, but yeah, I love the FEES courses and I love the vibe.
Have you ever experienced any really bad accidents due to those ramps being so big and like people disappearing in practice? I definitely could see that being an issue, right? Like even this year we saw Angie at Simple Session crash with somebody, and that crash was horrific, like so scary, And I think it's unfortunate, but it does happen, right? These ramps are so big, it's hard to see over them sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen some really great collisions. Thankfully, like I've never actually collided with somebody. I'm gonna knock on wood somewhere. But I can remember in Japan, Angie and Teresa from Spain got into a collision that was so scary that I had to look away. But then I can also think about another crash that took place when we were in China. And it was actually Nina and Caroline Buchanan. They collided, and I think Caroline ended up getting a compound fracture on her pinky. And those are collisions where people were actually able to like walk away from. Mm-hmm. But yeah, you don't mess around. You always got to pay attention, and that's what I try to teach my kids and newcomers to the sport. Like always watch people's lines where they're going. You can't just drop in blindly and think you own the course.
That's actually a really good point, and this is kind of a weird point that I'm going to make here, but I honestly feel that sometimes I'll go to a local park and I've actually went up to kids and said, hey, like, what you should do is really pay attention, look at where people are going and whatnot. And I don't know if it's just because maybe I'm a man or something, but like most of the time kids are pretty rude about it, where I feel as if like it sounds really dumb, I know, but I honestly feel like if a woman comes up and says, hey, pay attention in these ways, like, the kid's probably actually going to listen, and at least the parents aren't going to be upset about it from,
I'm going to test that theory the next time, because there was this kid at Cambridge the other day, and he was just in the bowl.
Yeah, I mean, I always try to be as cool as possible, and I always just tell them, hey, bud, you got to keep your eyes up, like maybe don't stand on that area. But yeah, I mean, you're talking about crazy skate park moms, I guess, that could get pissed if you come up and tell their kids, something.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it doesn't help that I'm like absolutely covered in tattoos as well. And like, I've always tried to be super respectful and everything. I've even went up to the parents first and said, hey, like just a suggestion, and sometimes they even get a little upset. But I think that's just people, like they just think that their kid is in the right? So
Like, no, we're trying to protect your kid.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But who knows? I guess they'll learn one day. You've rode a lot of contests, and I would love to know, like, what ones did you really enjoy the most, Cory?
So yeah, I've ridden lots of contests. I can just say that like some of my favorite contests are, I mean, obviously the FEES events, but I can think back to going to Germany for the first time and going to the BMX Masters and when they had the BMX Worlds as well. But in Cologne in Germany, they always put on amazing contests, and it was just fun atmosphere. Coming from America, going over to Europe for contests, it was completely different. I mean, it was more of like a family party atmosphere. You know, you could just go and walk into the event and check it out. Whereas in America, at like Zoo Tour or X Games, you know, you had to have credentials and you were stopped every 5 feet to check your credentials. And that was kind of my mindset going into these European contests. And so I always liked that going to Europe. So yeah, I would say BMX Masters was some of my like funnest memories, but also just when we go to, you know, the FEES events in China in particular. I mean, China is so crazy on so many levels that it always just makes for so many stories, and it just kind of adds a little bit more chaos to the already craziness of all of it. So I do enjoy it a little bit.
Yeah, I definitely think China would be such a cool place to go to these contests. And like you were saying earlier, the FEES contests always have so many people that show up just to watch, right? Like just spectators. There is always a huge crowd, especially the ones that are held in France. And like the one that they do at night with the Spine Mini, where it's like the 6-foot Spine Mini. Dude, there's always like a sea of people just surrounding this. And I think that's so rad. It reminds me of the days of like, you know, when Tony Hawk was still riding vert and whatnot, and there's just huge crowds. Like, you know, it's just so cool that like so many people come out to support and learn and watch BMX. You know,
I think the European fans are really into it more than anyone else in the
Yeah.
world. I would say. Cory, would you agree? Like, where would you find the craziest fans with all the contests you've been and all the countries you've been?
I mean, I think out of all the crazy, like, I mean, France is always the biggest crowds that you'll ever see. And, you know, kind of like what Cam's saying about like the Spine Mini, that event in particular is always bonkers. I mean, it's like super crazy riding, super crazy fans. And, you know, then they take the party to the street after that. And I've seen cars on fire and cars tipped over, and it's bonkers. But I don't know. So I would say France probably has the craziest fans.
That's awesome.
that's really cool, actually. I actually have a few listeners from France, which is, I'm sure that'll put a smile on their face to hear that. So you guys are killing it. Thank you. I would love to kind of move things along to the women's BMX and mom riders segment that I have here. So when you first started riding skate parks back in the 90s, we kind of talked about, you know, what it was like for you to join. But did you ever encounter people that would, you know, say maybe that you didn't belong or anything like that? Or was there really none of that?
I mean, I can't say that there weren't. I mean, there were definitely people that, you know, you show up to a skate park. Of course, everybody always looks at you. They're constantly talking about you. I mean, I used to have dudes at my local skate park that would talk about what underwear I was wearing at the time. And it's like, I'm not trying to attract that type of attention to me. So that was always kind of a little awkward. But I mean, again, I'm sticking out like a sore thumb being the only female in a very male dominated sport. But some negative stuff that did occur, you know, you'd show up to a park and maybe I'd be trying something, and then a guy will come up and like drop in on me and try the same exact thing, or like drop right in front of me and show me like his coolest trick to kind of show off. So there were things like that. And guys would always kind of talk crap as well, because from very early on, I had a lot of sponsors. And, you know, it was so much harder for a guy to get sponsored than it was a girl because, you know, I stuck out like a sore thumb. So I think there might have been a little jealousy at times, like why does she have a bike sponsor and I don't? So there was weird stuff like that, but I never had anybody like really fight me, I don't think.
It's hard to spite you after meeting you, though, too. Usually all the shit talking, hating is just not knowing somebody and just assuming the worst.
And to go on there about, like, you know, you being sponsored and whatnot, I think a lot of people don't understand this, and this is a point that I've made numerous times on the show, is that a good majority of being sponsored is just how you are as a person and what your personality is on top of your capabilities on a bike. Like, obviously, everything kind of plays into it. But I think for the most part, like, you know, if you're a good rider but you're a shitty person, nobody's going to want to have you represent their brand, right? Because at the end of the day, that's what you are. You are an advertisement for those people. Like, that's kind of how it goes, right? And I think that that's, like, a good point to make, is that you've always made yourself very, like, out there and very, you know, like, even from the beginning, like, you're definitely able to show people that, like, you know, you love BMX, which is awesome.
Yeah, definitely. And it's one of those things, I mean, if you're given a platform, you know, you want to inspire the next generation. You want to inspire people. You want to be cool. And so I kind of, I guess, recognized that early on. And exactly, I mean, I'm definitely not ever going to be this phenomenal, amazing rider, but I can talk to the younger generation. I can be super approachable and represent brands in a good, positive way. So, yeah, it's all about the full character, not just if you're an amazing rider or not.
Absolutely. Yeah. So something I didn't really get to touch on earlier was the fact that you did get into racing and whatnot and you transitioned. But Beatrice, I feel like you have a very similar story because you raced for many years and then you kind of stopped and started riding freestyle.
Yeah.
Do you think that, like, your story is a little comparable at least?
I'm not sure, because I think for me, I did technically start riding in park instead for about 2 years or so. And then I stopped and, you know, took the corporate route and did the whole career thing. And yeah, raced for 6-7 years or something. I don't know. I guess it's kind of similar. There were definitely some bad aspects of riding when I started, with the shit talking and the negativity and stuff. But I think now this is the best time to be in BMX. I think it's way friendlier. Especially at being a girl, it's way more supportive.
Yeah, absolutely. And even, like, you know, there was a couple, there's been quite a few girls that have been showing up at the Odd, the local skate park around here, Cory, if you're not aware. But basically, you know, they just show up on, like, skateboards, rollerblades, bikes, and everybody's been super respectful of it. Mm-hmm. And I've been kind of paying attention to it, just trying to make sure, right? Because, like, obviously, like, I want people to feel welcome. Like, that's my home park. I love that place. I'm there all the time.
I definitely don't feel a divide anymore.
Yeah.
As there used to be one. It's more inclusive, I'd say.
Definitely. Yeah. Anyways, in the last 20 years, this kind of relates to it, we have seen like a lot of women getting into BMX. There's so many, like, you know, names out there that are kind of like, at this point, normal names for women in BMX that just ride all the time, right? Yeah. We've got Hannah, Angie, Nina, Paris, yeah. Of course, amazing style. I'm forgetting her name.
There's Teresa from Spain.
Yes, there's the
Nikita.
2 Russian girls. I feel so bad. I know their name. It's just on the tip of my tongue.
And Arina Brabras.
Yeah. Those are all names that people know. Mm-hmm. However, you know, where do you see, like, women's BMX in the next 10 years? Do you think we're going to see, you know, just even more female riders? Are we going to start to see contests that, like, actually work instead of just having, you know, like, women kind of pushed aside?
Yeah, I mean, you know, given where BMX is at now, it's incredible. now that the sport is going to the Olympics next year, it's a huge, I think we're going to see a huge growth from it, because women are going to be then put into this worldly spotlight for BMX in particular. And having little girls myself, when they see people on TV doing cool things or just out in a park, they think that that's so cool and they want to be like that person. And so when you put BMX freestyle into the spotlight, and skateboarding will be in the Olympics and surfing, it opens and broadens the horizons for these next generation of girls. And it would be really hard to kind of predict like where BMX will be in 10 years. I mean, I think that the tricks that will be being done are just going to be crazy. I mean, if you look at Hannah's progression now compared to 10 years ago, it's mind-boggling. How Hannah is riding is just crazy. And Hannah's young enough to where she could still be riding 10 years from now. But then you look at these like young shredders from Japan, like these young girls from Japan, and it's like, dang, like this future is really, really bright. And so who knows what it will look like progression-wise, just out of this world. But also I just expect the sport to continue to grow, hopefully at astronomical numbers.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, what do you think, we could do to make BMX a more female-friendly space, if that makes sense? Is there anything that, like, maybe BMX is lacking that we should change, or, I don't know, just anything like that?
I mean, there's lots of changes for sure. I mean, women in general have a hard time getting equality in this world to begin with. And then you enter into sports and the equality falls and falls and falls even further. So, equality in general, being treated the same. These last few years with fees in particular, we've had to freaking fight tooth and nails about getting equal practice time. And then finally, the UCI steps up and says, okay, we're going to have equal practice time. But it's just crazy that you even have to fight for that, or that you have to fight for a bathroom, or, the next big thing that needs to be tackled is the pay. Like, there needs to be equal pay. You're risking the same amount of, risk, men and women. And women are just being thrown peanuts. And so those are things that we can fight for. But to continue to grow the sport and to make it a safer environment for women, I would just say, introduce, younger girls to the sport earlier on. So, if you start riding very, very early on, then you kind of know and you set the standards. So then it's more common for, a guy to see a girl at a skate park, kind of things like that. But I think we're going to constantly be fighting for equality on so many levels, and hopefully we don't have to in 10 years.
Absolutely. I completely agree with you. And it blows my mind that, you guys have to fight so hard for this stuff. Like, I don't understand why it's so difficult for people to understand that, like, you guys are putting just as much risk as anybody else into this. You guys should be paid just the same amount of money. At the end of the day, like, I truly believe that, like, we're all equal. Like, I definitely would love to see, people be treated equally. I don't think that that's right. Like, I don't think that, the fact that you guys, because Beatrice, you and Angie kind of set up a thing against X Games there because of, they weren't really wanting to give prize money. They weren't going to televise the event. They weren't going to do pretty much anything. They were basically just allowing you guys to ride the course, and that was basically it. Like,
yep, and that, I think that was the big thing that kind of catapulted the bloom last year, was the fact that we were campaigning for respect, and the truth of the matter is they had everything they needed. They got the time slot, they had the riders. Really, they just needed to make it a medal event, and cash as well would be nice. But yeah, that was the big thing last year.
Yeah, you guys are putting the same amount of effort in, like, to sit there and say, no, you guys don't deserve the same amount of money, even though you're putting in the same amount of effort, you're putting in all the same shit. doesn't make sense to me.
And
I don't like that.
And there's a want. There's people do want to see female riders. There's market and there's money to be made in it. So it's silly not to invest in it.
Especially with the way that things are in the world right now. Like we are really trying to make everything equal. Like now's the time. Like you would think that they'd be doubling down on this and making it, like one of their featured events, but apparently not. And that kind of that throws me off a little bit. What are your thoughts on that? Have you ever kind of dealt with like X Games or anything like that? Did they kind of do anything like that with you, Cory?
I mean, yeah, I remember I was there at the very first year that they offered it up to us women to do a demo at the X Games in Los Angeles. And, I was there to do a demo, and it was cool. It was awesome being, one of very few riders to actually get to ride an X Games course. And the first time it was kind of a novelty thing to be able to ride the course, but I can still remember doing a women's demo at the Dew Tour, and they paid us an appearance fee at least, at least you were being paid to be there. And again, nobody's in this sport to make a gazillion dollars, but it's just kind of crazy if you look at the amount of years that X Games keeps offering the same exact thing. And if you want to see the world's best riding and you want to see people do an amazing demonstration, then freaking pay them. It's not rocket science. And at the end of the day, it's not hard to offer it up and be like, hey, we have a women's event. We don't have money. What corporate sponsor is ready to step up and just offer this up for the women? It's not hard. But people don't have the backs of women to do that. I mean, it's not in their best interest to do something like that. So, I mean, it's their loss, and they just look like silly people in the end.
Mm-hmm.
Especially since, people like Beatrice and Angie are going out there and showing the world how these companies really are, like how X Games is about this. And you're exactly right where, X Games does get a lot of their money from corporate sponsors and whatnot. But it's literally just a couple emails you need to send to some other companies that would love to do it. Like, to say that there's no companies out there, and say, oh, no, we don't have the money because nobody wants to, is complete bullshit. Like, that is such a...
Someone's not doing their job. That's what it is.
Absolutely. It's somebody that's lazy and doesn't want to put in the work, right? And that's upsetting, like, really upsetting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. I can still remember, too, like, being at the BMX Worlds in the Czech Republic in 2005, and it was time for the podium, and, all the men got trophies, but the women did not. And it made me really mad because not only were they super cool trophies, but it's like the fact that they didn't think that women needed trophies. It's like, really? Like, really? You don't need to take a podium picture? I don't know. It's little things like that that are just crazy to me.
That's super upsetting. Like, actually, to hear that, that's really, like, I don't understand why, at least trophies. I'm like, you can't even do that? Like, that's pretty messed up,
So they had a women's class, but didn't think to do trophies for it?
Yeah, I mean, there's been some really funny things like that. I mean, it happens in modern day today too, being at events and not having a medal. And then they're like, oh, wait, we'll get you a medal. And then they'll come and give you a medal and it says a different event on it. And you're like, what the heck? Like, is this real? But yeah, it's real.
That is so messed up. It's not even like, it's one of those things that you're already putting in the money to make all these other medals. Why wouldn't you just do, the other ones? Like, wow. I don't know. That's really upsetting. Yeah. So, moving on from that, over the years, you have had 3 children. How has having kids changed BMX for you?
Yeah, I'm super stoked. I've got 3 little girls, and I mean, lots has changed. I've got a family to look after. I've got kids. And so I think, if anything, it just makes me be a little bit more precise with my time have more clear intentions. So whether that's training or traveling in particular, when I travel, I try to cut my dates a little bit shorter so I can, instead of traveling a little bit more, just try to be home with my family when I can. But it just makes me focus on what's the most important things. And it's changed a lot. But I've ridden pregnant, which is interesting, and I'm just stoked that I'm a mom and I still get to have fun on my bike at the end of the day.
So there's actually a really awesome photo of you riding pregnant at Feast. And I think you and I talked a little bit about this too, and you rode, I think, throughout your pregnancy with your most recent child. Was there a point where you couldn't ride anymore, or you had to stop riding, during your late pregnancy maybe?
Yeah, so, being pregnant, I'm definitely no expert in it, but I've done it a few times now. And there does come a point in time when I stop riding, but that's just when my body tells me that it's time to be done. And so just like if you're out training, training for a marathon and you hurt yourself, maybe it's time to call it quits. And so same thing with being pregnant. I was still able to bunny hop very late in my pregnancy, but at some point in time, your abdominal muscles start to separate, and bunny hopping in particular starts to really hurt. The first 2 pregnancies I rode up until, 7, 8 months. And then my 3rd pregnancy, I rode all the way, through until my baby was born. And so,
oh, wow.
I was still jumping box jumps while I was pregnant. But again, this is something that my body was comfortable with. And the fact that I stayed riding all throughout pregnancy, it's whatever your body is comfortable doing. I personally get more hurt when I'm trying to walk than I do when I'm riding my bike.
That's amazing. And with all 3 kids, how soon after were you back on the bike after giving birth?
So I did 3 home births. So all of our children were born at home, with midwives. And so I just based everything off of their recommendations, and the midwives always recommended waiting 6 weeks until after the baby was born. And so, even walking up and down stairs, they cautioned me in that. And so it takes 40 weeks to grow a baby. And so same thing, returning back to exercise, you have to also give your body proper time. And so I just kind of listened to my body, but I did use the 6-week mark until I was actually riding again, just so I can strengthen my muscles back again. So a good solid 6 weeks that I waited.
That's awesome.
So what were the first few sessions like when you came back? Were you kind of a little thrown off, or did you really just go for it, really go for a bunch of the tricks that you really miss doing?
Yeah, it was kind of fun. Like the first few sessions back, just knowing that I didn't have a big old belly anymore. But everything did feel a little bit different. Where your body feels centered over your bike was a little bit different. But I was just kind of excited to cruise around and not have to worry about, this thing in my belly anymore. But also something that that I didn't realize at the time, I breastfed all of my babies. And so I'd be at the skate park and all of a sudden I'd look down and my shirt would totally be wet with breast milk. And it's like the biggest ongoing joke, like, hey, my boobies are leaking. And like, what chick at the skate park can say that she's got boob milk leaking out of her shirt? Like, I don't know. I just think it's funny. But in regards to the breastfeeding, when you're breastfeeding, it makes all of your ligaments are still very loose postpartum. And so you actually have to be very aware that you can still, have your joints go out of place post-birth. And I think that actually is the reason why I blew out my knee in 2018, was because I was still breastfeeding up until that point in time. And all of my ligaments were still very relaxed. from the breastfeeding. And so I think that actually played into, you know, the injury again. So just learning, again, I mean, these are unnavigated waters. That I was probably one of the first women to give birth and then keep riding, or even ride while I was pregnant. So I don't know, I'm just kind of navigating these uncharted waters.
Mm-hmm. I think I remember the last time I saw you at Women's Weekend, maybe the year before this recent one. I remember we were joking about leaky boobs. I think you were pregnant at the time, or you were like deep in a couple months, I think.
Oh yeah, definitely.
That is like such a great example of something that, you know, would make riding harder just for women in general, is the fact that, like, if you've just had a child, you know, and you're breastfeeding, it's definitely going to be harder on your body and whatnot. I think that that's like, you know, that is so, it's such a funny thing that like no man in BMX can ever relate to. Like, I have no idea what that would be like, you know? But yeah, just so cool at the same time, you know?
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I don't know. You got to feed your baby, you got to do it. But everything in those early post birth days, like in regards to what does BMX look like after you're a mom, everything kind of revolved around, okay, I can go ride for an hour and then I need to go and feed my baby, you know? So everything kind of circulates around the baby. And now that they're kind of a little bit more grown up, then you can kind of leave them for a longer period of time and kind of figure it all out. But yeah, it's just all fun and games being a mom.
Now, I have to ask this, and I'm sorry if it's a little strange. Did you ever breastfeed at the skate park?
Oh, for sure. I think actually if you go onto my Instagram, I mean, I'm pretty sure there's a great video of me sitting in a bowl corner with the baby on my boob, and my friend rides around me. Yeah, no shame. It's like your kid's hungry. You got to feed your kid. I mean, yeah, no shame.
I correct me if I'm wrong, but I do recall you pumping milk at Joyride because one of the kids were hungry or your husband ran out.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean,
kids got to eat.
I'm just trying to find that clip here. Let's see. Oh, I think I found it.
Yeah.
Yep, here we go. Oh, that's such a funny clip. Oh, I love that. That's so great, Cory. Oh, man. Anyways, so moving on from that, we have a couple questions here that were, you know, just related to your riding and whatnot. So for you, what are your 3 favorite tricks?
I think some of my favorite tricks would probably, I mean, I love just whipping my bike. So just doing like a little moto whip. That's probably one of my favorite tricks, if you want to count that as a trick. I just love the way that it feels, and it's about how I like to ride. A next favorite trick would probably be a 360. I like the way that feels, and that was always such a super scary trick for me, that I kind of like it for some reason. I like the way that it feels, and it feels so unnatural to me still. Whereas like a backflip feels very natural because of the momentum. So 3s are pretty fun. And then I've actually kind of started to fall in love, with, I know this is going to kind of sound silly, but a ground chuck.
What's a ground chuck? Can you explain what that is?
You know, you kind of whip your bike to a certain, whatever side, and then you just grab the back part of your seat.
Oh, okay.
With your other hand.
I
don't know what
do
you
we
would
have a
call
different
it
name
in
for
Canada.
that?
Well, Ground Chuck is a rider in the States who's like he has a couple clips in my favorite video ever Anthem 2.
Mm-hmm.
As well as Anthem 1, he has like quite a few clips in there. It's a trails trick.
Cool.
You know, it's I definitely think that that's like the proper name for it, you know.
Yeah. See, I'm not too fluid with that kind of stuff.
Got to get into more trail
I
riding,
know,
Beatrice. What
I
are you
know.
doing, dude?
Corey, we gotta talk about your ramp in the backyard. Like that ramp is stunning. Like who built that? Who put up the design? What do your neighbors think? All that information, please.
Yeah, so, we don't have any neighbors on the sides of us, only behind us, but I mean, everybody's super cool in the neighborhood. Sometimes you just see people like stopping and like watching the riding that's going on, and people are always very supportive, very curious. We get lots of people that are taking pictures and videos frequently, asking what are those things in your backyard? But I've got other neighbors that would come out and like watch me ride from their balconies, and thankfully it's cool for now, but we'll see what it looks like in the future when there's neighbors on the sides of us.
Do you have any plans to expand it, or I don't have any like memory or footage in my head of like what the layout is like exactly, but I mean, is there any opportunities to grow it out more, or are you kind of using every square inch of the backyard?
Yeah, we still have some more room to expand if we wanted to. My husband has kind of gone like back and forth a few times about getting an airbag in the backyard.
Wow.
So there is more room to expand. But I also really enjoy gardening. And so it's like, do I get rid of the garden or do I have an airbag? And I really enjoy the garden right now. So, we'll see. I might get like the ramp resurfaced sometime here in the future. Living in Michigan, we've got lots of snow and ice, and it really does need a proper protection like skate light. So we'll see if that transpires in the next few weeks. But that's kind of about it, really. We'll see.
Did you and your husband build that, or did you have someone like come in and get that done for you?
Yeah, so we've got a rad dude, and he's actually based in Michigan. His name's Cory Coffey, and he's actually a really amazing rider himself, and he owns a construction company called Ramps Construction,
Mm-hmm.
And he builds ramps all over the world. So we kind of looked at the dimensions of the yard and kind of just came up with a few ideas of what we could do, and then he does a drawing of it, and then he just brings it all to life. So Cory built all of that with his crew, and pounded it out really quickly. But yeah, I was super thankful and stoked to have him on board to build those.
Now, I wasn't really able to find any photos or clips of your backyard ramp. Would you mind explaining kind of what it's like? I know that you have a resi back there. Do you not?
So I do own a couple of resis, but right now I can explain to you. So we've got a big roll-in. So there's a roll-in with a box jump, and then there's a right hip that goes to another big quarter. Then you come back, there's a step up with like a vert quarter, or you could go left back on the hip. Then we've got a spine, we've got a wall ride, we've got another quarter to kind of tombstone thing. And I can shoot you over some photos, but yeah, it's a pretty fun setup. It kind of is like an L shape, if you can imagine that. But it's good size. It takes up the majority of our second lot next to our house. But I do have resi and foam to set up on the box jump if I want that. But currently I don't have that set up because I don't really like resi personally. I would rather just do stuff on box jumps. So I don't know. I feel like it helps me be a better rider. So I've just got the resi rolled up right now and the foam underneath the ramp.
Are there any, you've got this cool backyard setup that's going on right now. Are you in your stage of riding where you're still trying to learn new things? Is there anything you're working on right now, or is it just more for flow, for fun at this point?
I'm always trying to progress and learn new things and scare myself. So I think that that's good. But yeah, I like to kind of learn new things and get out of my comfort zone. So trying to learn things going my opposite direction. So trying to just kind of push the envelope with that, because it's so easy to be comfortable and just ride and cruise around and have fun. But then there's days where you're like, all right, I'm ready to learn something new. I'm ready to scare myself a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And so I like that. It's kind of a, a toss up. Like, what do I want to do today? Do I want to just ride and cruise? Do I want to actually push myself?
That's really cool. I definitely think, like having a backyard ramp would be such an incredible thing. Because you can really just go out there at any point and just work on something, right? Like for me, it's, a pretty decent amount of riding or even driving just to get to a local park around here. And like sometimes that honestly just takes my motivation away.
Yeah.
It's something I just don't really want to do, But yeah, we're starting to see so many awesome backyard ramps being built in Ontario. And like you said, it's the same thing where they really have to, resurface them every couple of years because the snow and the ice and, just the rain in general will ruin those ramps pretty quickly.
Yeah, definitely. So it's a big upkeep, and having a backyard ramp, I've always wanted one. I mean, I can remember in the early 80s in California, one of my neighbors had a mini ramp in his backyard for a skateboard, and it was so cool to me. And ever since then, it's always stuck in my mind. Like, I would love to have a backyard ramp, and I'm so happy that I've got my own ramp now. But at the same point in time, it's a lot of freaking upkeep, and it's pretty expensive, when you're like, all right, we got to replace 40 sheets of plywood, like right now. You don't just have a skate light at your fingertips. So it's a little bit of a work, but it's cool to have it in your backyard for sure. It's a fun house.
Yeah, absolutely. And like the unfortunate thing too is that, I know some people that have like, one of my buddies has a bull in his barn. So, it doesn't get rain or snow on it, and it's actually still all the same wood and everything on it, and it's been there for about 13 years. However, I also have a buddy who has dirt jumps in his backyard, and these are both like alternative ways to kind of saving money, right? You build it, quote unquote inside. It's in a barn. It's not going to get, the same amount of stuff on it. But, and also building dirt jumps where the wood is like, the dirt is free, basically. You're just digging and making it work. But unfortunately, with the dirt jumps, it's going to cost like, a lot of your time, which, I mean, time is money, right? Yeah. Like, it's going to take so much upkeep and so much work where I feel like it's almost kind of worth it to have, a backyard setup. I think the only thing that's different about dirt would be, you can actually change it up pretty frequently if you would like to.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that would be really fun. I mean, I think dirt is probably my first love, and then ramps. And I would love to have dirt jumps in my backyard, but exactly what you're saying, it requires so much more upkeep. I mean, you got to be digging at your trails every single day and grooming them just to keep them top notch. Whereas, with wood, at least you can have like a consistent lip every single time. But yeah.
And then on top of that as well, after, the winter seasons that we have, which are pretty harsh here, and I would assume pretty harsh in Michigan, you basically are going to set aside an entire month where you're not going to be able to ride, where you're just working on the ramps, like just working on the jumps, just making sure that everything is up to par with what you would like, Otherwise, you end up like ruining your stuff. Like, it's just not going to ride the same. You'll probably create weak points in your jumps. I definitely think, if you want something that's fast and easy to be able to just go out and ride, wooden ramp all day. Mm-hmm. But unfortunately, it will cost you a lot of money at some point, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Especially right now, because of this whole pandemic thing, too. I mean, I know there's like a wood shortage, and it's driving the price up even more. So, yeah, it definitely costs a lot of money. Yeah,
unfortunately, there's a shortage on pretty much everything right now,
Yeah.
It's been pretty crazy. So, you brought up the pandemic there, and that was something I kind of wanted to talk about a little bit. What was it like riding for you when the pandemic struck? Because obviously, around here, all skate parks were closed, and I believe in the States, a good majority of skate parks were closed, a good majority of public spaces were closed, everything was on lockdown. What was it like for the first few months there? Like, obviously, you were able to kind of get around it with a backyard ramp, but still, like, riding the same thing every day can get kind of tiring after a little while.
Yeah, I mean, thankfully, we had the backyard ramp to ride. But at the same time, when the pandemic first started, I mean, it was still early spring for us in Michigan. And just like in Canada, I mean, it's still pretty frigid outside. And so there were days when I thought that I could ride and it's in like the 30s and the 40s. And, those days don't really work out to ride. So it didn't really work out super early on, but as spring finally sprung, it was nice. And I was thankful because I was seeing all kinds of pictures and videos of, people with freaking sand dumped in the bottom of their public skate parks. And so I was thankful that I had a ramp to ride and at least something, because that would have been pretty terrible.
Yeah, it kind of blows my mind that cities just came in and threw a bunch of sand in there, right? Like, I guess it makes sense because nobody's going to be able to ride it then. And, like, people around here were getting massive tickets, like, upwards of $1,000. I know a few people that literally, like, they made the stupid decision to go out and ride, and they had a hard time paying their rent that month. That's for sure.
Yep.
Yeah, it's too bad. I think it was a lot of fear of the unknown by the authorities and the public health officials that, they didn't really know what was going on. But I don't see the reason why to close a skate park when you can properly socially distance. If anything, people should stay active, I think, personally, than to not stay active. But yeah, it's crazy to see those things get closed down like that. I was just thankful that I at least had something to ride in the meantime.
And I think a good point to make there, too, is the fact that, like, for me and my friends, we just went out and rode street like we normally do anyways. But it was one of those things, instead of hitting the park twice a week, now we're just going to go and ride street 3-4 times a week, right? Like, it's one of those things that, like, most people are still going to get out and ride. They're just going to have to do it in a way that isn't going to benefit anybody, right? Like, especially if you're, mainly a park rider, like, those spaces are so, I don't know, like, they're needed. And also, like you point out, you can socially distance at a skate park. It's super easy. Like, most people do. Like, it's not one of those, I don't know, around here, they had opened BMX racetracks before they opened skate parks. And that blew my mind because in BMX racing, you're so close to, your other people. You're all right there and you're all sweating. You're all like, you've got stuff flying out of your mouth, everything. Yeah. Like, it's just, I don't know. It blew my mind that they opened racetracks before they opened skate parks.
Yeah, it took them a long time to get up and running, though, because they couldn't figure out what the best way to get everyone back in was. So now it's like, instead of 8 people in a gate, I think it's like 4. With, like, you have the space in between everything. But yeah, going back to the whole, like, getting fined, it's funny that, like, because the skate parks were closed, it made people just ride on the street instead, which is kind of defeating the purpose of keeping everyone safe, because that's way more dangerous in some ways if you're forcing people on the street.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember we were going out and we were filming a clip of me, actually. I was trying to do a roller coaster grind to 180 out on, like, this, double ledge setup. And the police ended up showing up and we just left instantly. But it was one of those things where we were like, there's only 4 of us and, like, groups of 5 are allowed. But it was still one of those things where we're like, nope, we're not dealing with this. Like, we'll just bike off. But that's the thing, like, we couldn't go to a park and try that. Like, I didn't have anywhere to go to even, get warmed up or try it. Like, we basically just went to the spot and gave it a go. So
yeah, it was either that or nothing.
Yeah, exactly. Did you meet anybody that had, like, crazy fines like that, Cory?
I'm trying to remember. I mean, I I know there were a couple of people that got like in trouble for riding, but I don't know if there were crazy fines though. I know they were kind of having a hard time like enforcing it but I don't know of anybody. I don't have any thousands of dollars of fines of people that I know by any means.
Yeah, that is so wild because, like, here I can name off about 4 different names. I know they don't want to be named, so I'm not going to, but I know about 4 people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know of quite a few people that got huge fines, which, like, I understand because at the end of the day, it's a pandemic. If everybody else has got to do it, you got to do it too. But there wasn't any fines for riding street, and that is, like, typically the thing that's not allowed. So it was kind of a weird role reversal.
Yeah.
Like, I remember even commenting on a clip of somebody who posted something that was, like, done at a skate park that day, and this was during the pandemic, and I was like, oh, this is the new street riding. Like,
Yep.
you're not allowed to be there, right?
Yeah, that's just crazy that out of all the things that they're going to harass people for that, I mean, it's the last thing that riders need are thousands of dollars in fines during a pandemic.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially during a pandemic when nobody can work, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. So moving on from that, you actually have a pretty good history in mountain biking. So why don't we talk a little bit about mountain biking with you? When did you first get started?
I first got started probably around the same time that I started riding BMX, so in the 90s. But I grew up in a town that was surrounded by mountains, and I started working at a bike shop very early on. So bikes were just always at my fingertips. So I started riding the local trails around there, met some really amazing mountain bike women, and just kind of fell in love with it. And I got certified to teach mountain biking. And so I was coaching for some of my friends' companies around different areas in the United States. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, I just love helping people progress their skills and understand the basic fundamentals of mountain biking. But I don't know, there's something just so rad about being out in the woods on your bike. Like, I love that. I love seeing nature from a bike.
That's awesome. And I think something else that's really cool is that you were teaching one of your daughters how to mountain bike, and you made this post on, let's see here. Sorry, let me bring this up. This was on May 26, 2018. Such a joy being able to ride with my kids, even when they faceplant. And there's a photo of you on a orange Specialized bike and one of your daughters with a yellow helmet, and she is clearly ended up in the dirt at least once. So any funny story about that, or was it kind of something that happened, just normally, I guess?
Yeah, so that was actually out in California at the Truckee Bike Park, which they have an amazing area if you ever get a chance to ride out there. But they host a big bike festival every single year, and so they always invite me out to their bike festival, and so I brought the whole family out. But they've got, different trails, pump tracks, dirt jumps that are just top notch. And it's fun for all ages. And so, yeah, that's my second born, Coco. And yeah, she was cruising around and she full on face planted. And there's something that's just so sad about seeing your child get hurt. But, her face is bleeding, but she still had the biggest smile and still wanted to shred. So we just kept riding. And she's the crazy one of the kids, really. I don't know. But, yeah, that's a great park out there in Truckee.
So about a month ago, you posted a photo of you and the girls at the pump track, and it's really clear that you guys are a big biking family. Are the girls showing any interest in maybe doing what mom is doing and competing professionally, maybe in freestyle or racing at this point?
Yeah, so the kids, I still don't know if the kids quite understand really what I do. I mean, I know that they know that I travel a lot, like mom's going to a bike event, like they kind of understand that, but, I'm all for supporting them in whatever it is that they want to do. So if they want to be ballerinas, I'm in full support. Or if they want to be ballerina BMX riders, I'm in full support. So, yeah, like we go to the pump track as a family at least once a week together. And it's an opportunity to just keep them active, but also to help build their courage and to help them accomplish things that they thought that they couldn't do. But yeah, like the youngest one, Ellie, she's 2, she'll be 3 on Halloween, and she talks about the pump track, I don't know, a couple times a day, and it was always like, Mom, could we go ride the pump track? So yeah, we'll see. I mean, they like to ride at the skate park. They like to ride at the pump track. They sometimes ride in the backyard on the ramp. So we'll see what the future holds for them. But I'm not trying to push them in any particular direction other than for them to just have fun.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
I think a great, thing that you're doing there is that you are showing them something that has played a huge role in your life. And for me, my dad, when, I was younger, he always took me to the skate park because he's a skater. He's been a skater since he was, 11 or 12, and that has played a huge role in his life. And I think that was kind of what got me started in BMX. Like I really wasn't a good skater. I really didn't find any interest in it, but I loved the culture behind skateboarding. Even from a young age, I loved the way that things were. I loved the ramps. I loved everything, but it just wasn't the thing for me. And then when I got into BMX, he picked up a bike, and it was one of those things that we both got into it at the same time, and that played a huge role for me. That really got me super excited about BMX and got me interested in it and got me, really to where I am today. I definitely can see that, your daughters are definitely into riding, and I think that, like you said, your youngest will probably end up, potentially getting really into it, which would be really interesting. Sorry to say really a bunch, but
yeah, it's fun. I mean, again, I just want them to have fun and, be inspired. But just seeing little girls think that they can't do something, and then when they accomplish that, how much they light up is awesome. So, yeah, they all have skateboards. They all have BMX bikes. And it's actually our second daughter's, it'll be her 5th birthday in 2 days. And she's been asking for a scooter for so long. And I've been very, very blunt with her, and I've told her that we're not a scooter family. But I gave in, and I bought her a scooter. And so in 2 days, I'm going to give her this scooter because I want her to find whatever it is that she loves. And so far, she thinks that she really wants to have a scooter. So we'll see. I don't know.
I do think that a scooter at that age is kind of appropriate, though, because, they can really learn how to go around the parks and whatnot. And it is a pretty safe, area to kind of join in on, right? And a lot of the riders that do stick into, that are younger and they get into BMX or skateboarding from scootering, it is one of those things that, they learn from a young age. And I worked at a local park for a couple of years that, some scooter riders were unreal. There's 11-year-old kids doing backflip drop-ins, and double flares and whatnot, and that stuff is super respectful. But yeah, I don't know. My opinion on it is always that scooters just get a bad rap because of younger kids that
yeah.
their parents don't know anything, they don't tell them anything about how to go around a park. But yeah, who knows? I definitely do think that it's either a great transitioning piece, or for a lot of kids that it can actually be their main focus, and even that is really cool. And I do like that you are pushing her towards BMX, but you're totally giving in and you're saying, okay, you know what? You want a scooter? We'll do that for you. I love that.
Yeah, it's awesome. And just try to be a good mom,
Of course. I would honestly say that you're probably one of the best moms out there. You're a cool mom. That's the thing, right? My mom has always been very up until a couple of years ago, she was always when are you going to stop riding? You're just hurting yourself. She didn't really understand it. And then recently she came out to one of my BMX jams, and she had an amazing time. She loved it. She thought it was one of the craziest things ever. And I think that the fact that I've kind of made a name for myself in the area for just doing podcasts, hosting jams, and doing all this kind of stuff has really shown her how much it means to me, but it was always one of those things growing up that like I didn't like that I kind of had to prove to her why I'm into this, you know?
Yeah, for sure. But that's rad that she finally came around and has seen your passion for it. That's rad.
Yeah, absolutely. So a little bit off topic here, but is Danny Darko still one of your favorite movies?
That's a really funny question that's caused a lot of contention in previous years. So, that is a very great, interesting movie. I haven't watched it in many, many, many years, but yeah, it was a pretty fun movie at the time when I watched it the last time.
That's awesome. So definitely very off topic, but in the movie, there's a couple different scenes where, some of the actors call each other a fuck ass. Have you ever called any of your friends a fuck ass before?
I can't recall that I have. Those two words don't usually ever go together for me.
I just figured I would ask. That's, one of those great quotes in that movie. I don't know why, but I love it. Anyways, moving on from that.
Hey, it's Wayne from Wonderland Studios. I'm a professional tattoo artist with 25 years experience at some of the best tattoo shops in the country. I've worked alongside some of the best tattoo artists in the industry, been able to really grow and expand my portfolio and my wealth of knowledge. We are one of the Tri-Cities premier tattoo studios. We focus on creating a unique tattoo for each client in a friendly, welcoming, professional environment. We work closely with the Board of Health to set the standards for cleanliness and safety. If tattoos are not your thing, our piercer Deacon is fully accredited with the APP, the Association of Professional Piercers, and is considered one of the region's top piercers, leading the charge in innovation and growth within the piercing community. If you want to learn more, you can follow us on YouTube at Wonderland Tattoo Studios. If you want to check out my work, you can check it out on Instagram at CanContainTheWayne, or check out the shop's Instagram at Wonderland Tattoo Studios KW.
You have been riding a blue Ty Laird frame. How has that been holding up? You've had it for quite a while now, have you not?
Right now I'm on my second Ty Laird frame. So the first Ty Laird frame I got, I had him powder coated blue, and I rode that for a little over a year. And then this last year, or actually at the very beginning of this year, I got my second Ty Laird frame. And so it's been holding up really great. It's amazing growing up riding, 40 plus something pound bike to now riding, under 20 pound bike. It's half the weight. Like, it's crazy. And, I'm stoked about that dude's work. I mean, he does amazing bikes, and I'm stoked on it.
How's the hydro dip holding onto the new frame right now? Because I think you had it hydro dip kind of like an abalone design.
Oh, it's great. It's been working out really well.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't even realize until now that it was hydro dip. That looks amazing, actually. That's really cool. We're just looking at one of your photos of you doing a tire grab, I believe probably behind your house. Yeah, that looks awesome. Yeah, it's a nice looking frame. Yeah, Laird is he's a legend in the scene. Like, he's rode with Mira for years and has been, a big name in BMX for quite a while. So to see him start a company of his own, and I love all the support that he's been getting, cuz to do one-offs like that and do frames that are strictly custom order is such a hard thing to maintain, and he's really been able to make it into a very big name in the BMX industry where you can show up anywhere, and if you see that Laird frame sticker, you know that that person really is dedicated, which is awesome. I love that.
Yeah, it's so cool. I'm stoked to always see another Laird frame out there. And Mike's such a good guy, definitely a very dedicated craftsman with his work. So yeah, I'm beyond happy and thankful that I get to have one of those frames.
Absolutely. All right, so we got one last question for you before we jump into the fan questions. So this one was about the Mega Cavern in, I forget where it is now. I can't believe I forgot the location of it, but it's a big dirt jump place that ended up closing down a few years ago.
Louisiana or something.
I think it was,
Kentucky?
I can't remember. I know I talked to the Fids because he broke his femur there on his 50th birthday trying to flip one of the jumps.
Whoa.
Wow. Yeah, it was in outside of Louisville, Kentucky.
There you go.
And I had heard about it, and I was like, wow, a cavern with dirt jumps. I mean, of course, everybody wants to go there. And so I actually, we planned a trip with a couple of my mountain bike friends, and we all met up in Kentucky. We got to ride the sick Louisville skate park that's got the full pipe, and then we went to the caverns to ride, and I guess I had big expectations for it. It was a little creepy being down in a cave, I guess, or a cavern. Not like, and it was kind of raining outside that day, and they said that like flash flood warning or like it could occur. But it was kind of dark down there. The lights were burnt out on a lot of the dirt jumps, so you couldn't really see the lips. So other than not being able to really see the dirt jumps, it was a cool idea that there were dirt jumps underground like that. But yeah, a little sketchy that they didn't fix the lights.
Yeah, any photos that I've seen of that place, it was always pretty dark in there. But it was one of those places that, like, I am kicking myself for not, going and riding there. Like, such an incredible idea, I feel like it would be so hard to maintain those jumps, too, because, you're underground. Like, I guess it is one of those things that, like, you can really control the elements and everything, but I feel like there would be so much humidity in there that the jumps would kind of be a little difficult to, maintain. They don't get the same sunlight. They don't get the same heat or anything like that.
Yeah, I think it was a really great idea that they allowed the dirt jumps to be built down there. But yeah, I mean, it was just a little bit different. And I know that they had like some water that came in a lot, but the lighting, and I think also just accessing the area was probably a little difficult as well. But cool idea, maybe not such a great execution though.
Yeah, from what I heard, getting out of there when the Fids broke his leg was like a whole ordeal. Like, it was such a big process of just trying to get out of there, right? Because it's underground for one, but being able to, he's got a broken leg, so they got to carry him. And, like, apparently it took him about an hour to get out of there.
Ugh.
Yeah, which is super
That's
rough.
about an hour too long.
Yeah, right. Anyways, we'll jump into some fan questions here. So, somebody here asked me, who has inspired you as a rider, both past and present? However, we did talk about the past before. So, who is inspiring you nowadays?
That's a really great question, but I spend often enough time on the airplane. And I just recently took a trip out to California, and I was on the airplane, and I started watching a movie about Bethany Hamilton. Are you familiar with her, the surfer girl that has her arm bit off by a shark?
Yep.
I have definitely seen footage of her and heard of her before.
Yeah, so I had the opportunity to meet Bethany back in 2008. We were filming this like weird reality TV show thing, and I was introduced to her back then. And, I don't know, I thought she was cool. Like, dang, she got her arm bit off. But I've recently just really been super inspired by her because she was an amazing surfer at a very young age, lost her arm, but she didn't let that stop her. She got back into the water, started surfing again, it was always her dream to make it onto the Women's Pro Tour. And her best friend, Alana Blanchard, they grew up together. And her friend was able to go onto the surf tour. But then, she got married. She went on this huge thing she wrote a book, and she went on this big publicity tour. And then she ended up getting pregnant, and she surfed, and she still surfed, and then she had these aspirations to do bigger things. And so that was really cool for me to see her not only get injured in a super gnarly way, but still be able to come back from that, and then also becoming a mother and surfing while she was pregnant, and then having a baby and having a supportive husband, and still being able to go out there and accomplish her dreams. And that's been really huge to me lately. And just seeing that, and that just really has been resonating a lot with me lately.
Absolutely. I think a great example of, the story you're telling there would be Julian. I'm going to butcher his last name. I think it's Milano. He recently did, a full section for X Games Real BMX Street. And he unfortunately lost his leg in a skateboarding accident involving a bus where he, at 7 years old, got hit by a bus in Colombia, skateboarding down the hills. And I think there was I forget what it was called, but there was a certain infection that he got where they needed to cut his left leg off, and he did not let that stop him. He has since, been working hard at riding BMX and staying with, what he loves to do. And his video part just won fan favorite for 2020, which was incredible. I think that's like so well deserved. And I think that what Daryl Taco did to film with him and to really, show his story to the world was incredible. He's definitely like Matt Hoffman just posted a thing last week about Julian being his new hero, and that's the Condor. That's the biggest BMX guy in the world. Like, anybody knows Matt Hoffman, so to see that he's saying that kind of stuff is truly amazing. And I hope that Julian knows that he is a hero to not only Matt Hoffman, but to me and so many other people in the BMX industry.
Yeah, it was so rad. I actually had quite a few friends message me about his video part, and I had seen the video part, and I was just blown away seeing the guy do a tail whip. And it's like, all I could say was that you shouldn't ever have excuses in life. Like, nothing has stopped that kid. Mm-hmm. And it's incredible and definitely inspiring to see him shred like that. I mean, I'm still taken back.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he proved to everybody that there's no excuses in this world and that you're just making up a bunch of bullshit in your own mind, right? Like, you can do anything if you put your mind to it. And that's what I love.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So Cory,
and one more thing that I'd like to just say is really inspiring to me. Maybe you're familiar with the twins from Colombia as well, Queen Zare and Lichu.
Yep.
They're two young twins from Colombia that ride BMX that recently got on with Red Bull, and I've been watching them for the last few years ride through the internet, and I finally had the pleasure of meeting them. I think it was last year, was the first time, but the Red Bull film that came out about them, where they come from, how inspiring it was for their parents to see them ride and how the dad built them a foam pit. It's just, that film is incredible. And if you haven't seen it, I mean, it made me cry. But I'm so stoked for those girls and to see how much they've pushed through and where they've come from. So I'm stoked on them as well.
Hell yeah, that's awesome. I have not seen it. I am going to watch it right after we finish this.
And I think the whole lesson here is definitely don't give up excuses.
Yeah.
Because there's no reason for you to not achieve what you want to achieve, right?
Absolutely.
Cory, so Angie Weston wants to know what's been harder, than surgeries that you've had on your knees or having 3 kids?
Yeah, that's a great question. What's more painful, knee surgeries or childbirth? Every type of pain is a little bit different, but I think as women, our bodies were created to give birth, and so it all kind of happened for me naturally. And yeah, it was a little painful giving birth, but having knee surgery sucks as well, and smashing your face in sucks as well. But I think actually the most painful thing I've encountered was when I dislocated my kneecap at the World Championships when I blew out my knee in 2018. for me, that was more painful than giving natural childbirth at home.
Whoa, that's gnarly. Angie also wants to know, when are you getting back to mountain biking?
Well, that's funny, Angie, because I never quit mountain biking.
That's what I thought.
But yeah, my mind and my heart are set right now on BMX, and I want to, continue to compete through next year. And so that is my main focus. As much as I love riding mountain bikes, my focus right now is riding my BMX bike, because it's a little difficult for my mind and my body to switch back and forth from 20-inch to 26-inch. So I'll see you out there on the trails, Angie, sometime next year.
Yeah, I've done the whole mountain bike BMX thing for a little bit, and they both benefit each other in some ways, but I found that going back to BMX made things really twitchy and awkward sometimes. We had another question about injuries as well from Mikey BMX16. He wants to know how your ankle's doing.
Thanks for checking up on me, Mikey, but my ankle seems to be doing okay. There's nothing more humbling than casing a jump and having your joints pay for it. So yeah, cased pretty hard the other day, and it just kind of rolled my ankle or wadded it up. But, a little stretching here and there doesn't help. And yeah, it seems to be doing all right, but thanks for asking.
Aw. And then we have one more question, and it's already been pre-answered, but who is your favorite USA BMX or USA cycling employee? And this is from Tony D.
Oh, I mean, that's a no-brainer. Let's talk about USA Cycling and their employees. Hands down, Tony D. I mean, he's everybody's favorite. Look at him.
What is Tony D's role in USA Cycling?
I believe Tony D's technical role is team manager for USA Cycling, and he makes sure that the riders are all taken care of and have everything that they need. So, yeah, great guy, and he's been in BMX for many, many, many years. So, yeah, it's awesome to have somebody who's been in it for a while.
That's awesome.
I just want to say, Cory, this has been incredible. Thank you so much. It honestly, means so much to me that you would take the time out of your day and also your camping trip to speak with us today. We just have one more question for you. And that question is, what's your advice to the women out there wanting to get into BMX?
So my advice to women that want to get into BMX would just be to get a BMX bike, get some supportive people around you, and just try it. I mean, just like with any other sport, you can't expect to be amazing at it right off the bat. But just getting started and staying consistent with constantly practicing. I'm all about pump tracks, and I think that pump tracks really lead into great bike handling skills and help you to be able to further any type of riding that you do. So go to your local pump track, cruise around, and like they say, practice makes perfect. But just don't let it discourage you. So just get like a good group of supportive people around you to encourage you on.
Hell yeah. That's such a great answer, honestly. And I think the fact that you really point out there that, you're probably not going to be great at the beginning is such an important thing for people to hear, especially because, with the rise of Instagram and all of these social medias where people are posting clips every day of their best riding, right? The average kid is going to look at that and be like, well, I need to be as good as these people, right? And if you're just starting out, I could totally see that as being very hard to attain,
Yeah, and sometimes you think it just comes so naturally, but no, you have to put a lot of hours and maybe months and years into something.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point. Yeah, what do you think of that, Cory?
Yeah, I just think that that's so true. I mean, I get people that come up to me quite frequently that say, wow, you're such a great rider. Like, how long have you been riding for? And I tell them, well, I've been riding for over 20 years. I've had 12 knee surgeries. Like, I've been through a lot, but it's just when you tell them you've been riding for over 20 years, they just kind of step back and they're like, oh, wait, okay, wow, I guess I got to keep trying. But yeah, I mean, just keep trying, keep going. Yeah, that's the best thing that I could advise people to do.
Absolutely. So, Cory, this has been amazing. Again, thank you so much for doing this. This means a lot to myself and as well as Beatrice. Yeah, is there anything else you wanted to mention or anything you wanted to throw in there?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you again for taking the time and for doing this. Super stoked that you're having me on your show, and yeah, let's hope this pandemic is over with soon and we can all shred together again soon.
Absolutely. I'm really looking forward to meeting you at Joyride one of these days. So, when you're in the area, let me know, and we'll definitely, meet up at some point. I would love to have you on the show, like here in person with Beatrice and I. I think another episode of this would be really cool.
Awesome. Sounds great. As soon as they open up that border, I'll be there.
We're not going to try the whole BMX tutor thing over the border?
Yes. If you need me to be your BMX tutor, I got you.
I'll ask. I'll call my contacts, see if that's allowed.
Oh, man. Well, thank you again, Cory. We will talk to you later. Please enjoy the rest of your camping trip. I know that you're just getting started today, so yeah, enjoy.
Cool. Thank you guys so much. Talk to you later.
Perfect. Have a good one. Bye.
Bye.
All right. Bye.
Alrighty. That was awesome. I really enjoyed that. Yeah. Cory is such a great person, to really just sit down and speak with her.
She's just super relatable, like even the fact of like, yeah, I could put like an airbag or keep my garden. It's weird. It's weird, but awesome.
That is definitely something that, like, the second she brought up her garden, I was like, oh yeah, that would be Taylor. Yeah. Like, the lamb, for those of you who know her as that. Yeah, she would not be down with the airbag, but she'd probably be down with the garden. Like,
Cory, if you ever get to meet her, she's the most relaxed, chill, honest, straight shooting person you'll ever meet. She's amazing.
Hell yeah. Well, guys, this has been awesome. Thank you guys so much for checking us out today. I want to give a huge thank you to Beatrice from the Bloom for, putting in work and coming here today and chatting with us. Whenever we have a girl in, it's got to be Beatrice with us because I think it's only appropriate, Yes. Awesome. Well, next week we'll have, I think, some local guys in, so that'll be really fun. It's been a little while. We will see you guys in the next one. Peace.